Yeah, give it up for the dads. I won't make you stand up again, but where are my dad camp dads? I was backstage. There we go. I see you. I see you guys. Thanks for being here. So that was dad camp. That was 2 different weekends that we just got finished wrapping up. And I just want to celebrate this morning what happened and share a little bit about that. Before I do, there was something else I was going to say. And I can't remember. Oh, I remember. This is not a message for dads, all right? So some of you are like, oh boy, here we go, another message from Ryan about dads. It's not. I believe that if you are a follower of Jesus Christ and you want to figure out what that looks like for your life, there is a message that Dad Camp has embodied, and that if we can all grab onto that, it will improve all of our lives and move us all closer to Christ. And that's the part about Dad Camp that I'm really excited about, and that I hope I'm able to communicate this morning with you guys. So let me go to the beginning here. All right. So if you don't know me, my name is Ryan Donovan. I'm on staff here. I've been on staff for the last 12 or 13 years. It's hard to keep track. I'm also the director of Dad Camp. I gave myself that title. I'm not the actual director. His name's Jason Braun. He started it 18 years ago. He's the executive director and co-founder. But I think Jason would feel comfortable if I called myself the Ohio Dad Camp director, at least until somebody else starts another dad camp in Ohio. So I began here probably 12 years ago as part-time, and my role was unloading trailers at the K1 building. Where's all my K1 people at? There we go. And so setting up and tearing down in a school gymnasium, that rolled into getting involved with student ministry, leading small groups, eventually became the student director for a few years, got married, started having kids, and then too many retreats and summer camps. And then we were getting ready to build this amazing space. So I transitioned over into production, where I've been for the last few years and still have the honor of leading that team today. But on top of that, I get to be involved in this amazing organization and initiative called Dad Camp. A little bit about me. My wife and I, we just celebrated 9 years of being married. Thank you. I am proud of myself and us. I don't know if it's felt long or short. We have 3 amazing little girls, Everly, Shiloh, and Lily. There's Everly in the back, and then Shiloh's our middle, and then Lily's our youngest, and then there's my wife, who is 8 months pregnant in this picture, and I made her hike up the sand dunes in Michigan with me so that we could take this photo, and she did it, and she was a champ. It was there were some stops along the way, and then we are pregnant. We're due October 10th. We do not know what it's going to be. I am not going to find out because everybody wants us to have a boy, and I think the suspense is exciting for you all. And I honestly don't care. I can't think of anything better than being a dad to 4 little girls or 3 little girls and a little boy. So that's right. So we'll get to find out soon. So in becoming a father over the last few years, I've become increasingly passionate about fatherhood and what it means to be a good dad. And for a lot of different reasons, I've felt really ill-equipped in this journey of mine. I think it's really easy at first to be a dad if you can just get used to sleeping a little bit less and learning how to change diapers and being an attuned husband if you're in that position. And then it starts to get a little bit more complicated, and you get tantrums and strong-willed little kids and emotionally manipulative little terrorists. And 2 of my favorite are in the room with me this morning, who I love very much. And, so that started happening. And then, some unhealthy coping mechanisms, not being able to manage stress well in my life, some suppressed anger. And I've spent a lot of my fatherhood journey feeling really lost and wondering what it looks like to be a better father and how I can be a better father. And so years prior to this, I heard about this organization called Dad Camp. I didn't know a lot about it, but I knew that their mission was to help every family have an amazing father. And they did this through their, kind of their mission statement was to inspire, encourage, and equip dads to be the best dads that they can be. And so from the first time I heard about it, I was really intrigued. And then I got really intrigued as I became, went through this fatherhood journey, and it started to mean a little bit more to me. And long story short, me and a buddy went out to Indiana 3 years ago and checked it out. And we were like, what is this thing? So we went to observe a weekend, and I fell in love with it. And from the first session and the first time that we were a part of it, we were like, we need this at our church. Like, our dads need this, and I need this. And so fast forward a few years, last summer, we took 60 dads and 60 elementary school kids on our first ever dad camp. And then this summer, we took 60 dads and 60 elementary schoolers. And then we added another 30 dads, and they each took a middle schooler with them. So we took almost 90 dads and over 90 kids to dad camp this summer. And what I want to share with you guys is that it works. Dad camp works. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, but it is changing dads, kids, and entire families at our church and in our community. And there's a undeniable power that the role of a father plays in a kid's life. And one of the things we talk about at dad camp is this idea called the father factor. And it's this idea that dads play a pivotal role in the family, that dads play a pivotal role in the family and directly affect the outcome of their children's lives. Now, like, sidebar for all the ladies in the room or anybody who's not a dad, I'm going to share some statistics about the impact of fathers. And this in no way discredits the impact of mothers. But I'm not a mom. I don't run mom camp, and it's not Mother's Day. So I'm not talking about the impact of moms. But it in no way discredits or steals from it. I believe that God has created the family very uniquely, and that moms and dads each play a pivotal role in the life of a child, but they're different. Equally as important, but different impacts. And today I want to talk about the impact of fathers and this idea called the father factor. So we'll start really broad. I want to share some statistics with you. The U.S. Census Bureau says this: a father's absence affects children in numerous unfortunate ways, while a father's presence makes a positive difference in the lives of both children and mothers. Here's a stat that we talk a lot about at Dad Camp. It's from the National Fatherhood Initiative. We've done a ton of research about fathers and impacts in families. And this is what they say: absent and disengaged. So absent and disengaged dads can be linked to 60 to 70% of child depression, anxiety, academic struggles, abuse, teenage pregnancy, addiction, and suicides. Strong dads can be linked to a 60 to 70% reduction in all of those issues. When it comes to faith and how kids view God, there was this really fascinating Oxford University study, and they found that when fathers are absent or emotionally distant, anybody ever been emotionally distant? A wrathful, distant view of God emerged, sometimes closely resembling that of the absent father. And then one more study, a Swiss study, as it pertains to church attendance, this is incredible, found that when you have a non-practicing mother, you guys gotta stick with me for this one, a non-practicing mother and a regularly attending father, 2/3 of the children will end up regular attenders in church. Non-practicing mother, regularly attending father, 2/3 of the kids will regularly go to church. When you have a non-practicing father, but a regularly attending mother, 2/3 of the kids will not end up in church. This is the father factor. Fathers have a real influence on their kids. And one last stat, this is something that we talked a lot about this past weekend, and it's also from the National Fatherhood Initiative. And this is startling. It discovered that more than half of dads feel that they are not prepared and that they are replaceable by their child's mother. Half of dads feel like they're not prepared and that they are replaceable by their child's mother. And, to be fair, I don't think dads or moms or anyone for that matter are ever fully prepared to have children. I don't think you can actually understand what you're getting yourself into. But when you have this idea of the father factor and the pivotal role that dads play in the lives of their children in one hand, and then in the other hand, you have 50% of dads feel like they don't matter, that they're replaceable. How do those things possibly go hand in hand? Half of dads, 1 out of every 2 dads feel like they do not matter in the lives of their child. That's wild. And here's the thing, I think there's a really good reason for this. I think it's actually really logical. And I would argue that, that fatherhood and the importance of fatherhood in children's lives is under attack. And that in our culture, there is a changing tide about the way families view the role of a father. It's becoming increasingly normal to downplay and minimize the role of a father. And I think it's happening right in front of us. I think it's really subtle, and I've been guilty of it. In fact, about a year ago on Father's Day, I got up on stage and I did another message about dads. And I made a very off-the-cuff joke, very impromptu joke about encouraging dads and appreciating dads for their 4 minutes of hard work, okay? I thought it was funny. I'm immature, okay? And later that week, I got an email from a father at our church who I know. And this is what he said. It's an exceptionally stereotypical thing to say. More than that, it's demeaning to men, and it minimizes the very role of fatherhood, which you are ostensibly there to speak to us about. You essentially demoted men to the role of sperm donor with that statement. Not that you would know any of that, and I get the joke you were making. It's just time to stop joking about an issue that is systematically ingrained and serves to marginalize the role of men when it comes to raising a child. That was a hard one to read. I was taken back. And I know this guy, and there was much more to that email, and his heart was in the right place. And the truth is, it was a hard criticism to take, but I think he sniffed something out. I think I was doing the very thing that I'm talking about. I was minimizing the importance of a dad's role in a family. And, I call this, somebody else probably said this before me. I call it the Peter Griffin or Homer Simpson syndrome, okay? The funny, stupid dad. Everybody loves him, he's enduring. Mom does all the work while dad gets drunk and watches TV. And but it's not just those two dads. There's quite a few of them when you start to look for them. And so let's test your, see how much of a binge watcher you are, or we'll also test your age. Don't forget the Frank Gallagher, the Walter White, it's a good one. The Red Foreman, Frank Costanza, funny, but he's a crazy guy. Al Bundy, not Ted Bundy. He would be a bad dad too, though. Frank Reynolds, Tony Soprano, and Tywin Lannister. Some of these dads are really harmless, while others of them, if they play out in actual children's lives, not TV children, they're detrimental to their family. And if that offends you because you love one of the shows, I hate to break it to you, but they're not actually real dads. And so I don't know how offended they would be. But I believe this is an attack on families and on fathers. And it's designed to destroy what a family is supposed to be. And I think it's more than that. And this might be the turn where some of you get lost. But this is really what we believe as a church and as followers of Christ, that this isn't just like an attack from Hollywood and pop culture to, destroy families, but this is actually an attack from our biggest enemy that we have, Satan, the one who comes to kill, steal, and destroy everything good that God wants for us. One of my favorite verses is Ephesians 6:12. And it says this: we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This isn't just like a thing where the world is against it. I believe this is a thing where our enemy is against this, Satan. And I think it's that way because when father struggles, families struggle. If you can destroy a father, I think you can really destroy a family. And why attack people's view of God when all you have to do is attack their view of their dad? The relationship between a child and a father will shape how a child sees God. And I did a whole message about this. Good dad equals good view of God. Bad dad equals bad view of God. It's subtle, it's powerful, and it's really effective. And that's why Dad Camp is so important to fathers. and so important to this church and important to me. I think it's delivering a message of importance and hope and encouragement to dads. It's telling fathers that they matter in the lives of their children more than they will ever know. It's telling fathers that they have what it takes to be a great dad, and that we actually believe in them and that we think they can do it. There's a fun saying at dad camp, and it's this: you have what it takes. And at the opening of every session, we do this really cool and powerful thing. And we have all the kids stand up on their chairs and square up with their dads. And they shout this. And the idea is that dads have what it takes to be a really great father. And kids have what it takes to be everything God has called them to be. And so everyone stands up and shouts this. And this is how it works. I say, you have what it, and then you say takes, all right? You have what it, you have what it, you have what it. And the dads scream it at their kids as loud as they can and look in their little kids' eyes and encourage them. And then the kids scream it to the dads as loud as they possibly can to see who can be the loudest, and they're really high pitched and they usually win. But they're telling their dad, like, Dad, you have what it takes to be an amazing father. And that's what, that's part of what I love about dad camp, is this message that, like, hey, you can do it. You have what it takes. You have the potential to be a better dad. And in that statement is this kind of twisted thing where it could almost become an insult, because what potential means is you haven't really done it yet, or maybe that there's more that's to be accomplished still. There's room for growth. And so we unpack this idea of you have what it takes over these weekends. What does that mean to have what it takes, and how do we get there? When our youngest Lily, she's 3.5 years old now, when she was born, I took the last week of my paternity leave, and we decided to do a kitchen renovation that we'd been putting off for a while. And now every year on my daughter's birthday, I'm reminded about how long it's been since I've not finished our kitchen renovation. And it's getting close. It's getting close. And here's the thing: I have what it takes. Like, I have the paint in the basement, I have the trim boards, I have I have all the grout for the 10,000 subway tiles that we had. I don't know if you've ever had like a drywall backsplash that's all patched and ugly, and then when you get tile up, it looks amazing, and you don't even care about the grout 3.5 years later. I have all the things. I have what it takes, but I have not done it yet. I have the potential, right? And I have the skills. But why haven't I finished yet? And the answer is, it's hard. Having what it takes and doing what it takes can a lot of times feel like they are miles apart. Anybody ever felt that? Like, you know what you want to do, you know the type of person you want to be, the type of spouse, the type of parent, the type of coworker, the type of sibling, the type of neighbor. And like, it's like, why is that so hard? And it can feel really far. And so this is true for my kitchen, and it's also true when you want to be a great parent. And so honestly, it's way easier to not finish the kitchen than it is to finish the kitchen. And it's the work that it's hard. It's the time, it's the energy, it's the sweat. It's also easier to be a disengaged or unpresent or bad parent than it is to be a good one. It's easier to let your temper flare and lash out to the people around you than it is to dive deep inside and figure out, where does this come from? Why do I feel the way I feel? Where have I been hurt? Where am I disappointed in my life? It can be easier to be a workaholic than to deal with the emotional needs of a child or a spouse. It's easier to give your kids all the things they want, to financially provide for them, to send them to a great college, to get them a nice car, to save up for their wedding, to save up for their inheritance, than it is to give them what I believe they need the most, which is actually just more of you. And it can be easier to come home from work and to cope with food or alcohol or drugs, or to hide your face behind your phone instead of being fully present with the people you live with. When it comes to being a great dad, and really most things in life, I say this to my 6-year-old, the easy decision is rarely the one that works out the best. You have what it takes, but doing it is really hard sometimes. And I think this is what makes dad camp so impactful for so many kids and dads. It comes along these dads and not only says you have what it takes, but let's work. Let's work together. Let's work side by side. Let me help you take this idea of you have what it takes and this idea of a great father, and let's move towards it together. Dad camp becomes the coach, the cheerleader, and the trainer that helps dads be the best possible dads they can be. And it does this through different strategies. There's messaging just like this, and worship with the kids, and one-on-one time and activities, and we facilitate conversations. I mean, we did this really cool thing. We facilitated prayer between dads and kids. And for a lot of dads, it was like the first time they've ever prayed with their kids. And it was really cool and really powerful. And that's all effective. But there's one thing that they do that is the thing. It is the thing that helps dads. And it's this: dad camp exposes dads to and points dads to the best father of all, God. It strives to help dads look at the qualities and characters of our Heavenly Father and say, that's the type of dad that I want to be. I want to be more kind with my kid because God is kind with me. I want to be more patient because God is patient with me. I want to love them well because God loves me well. We literally point them to God and say, be more like God, because if you are, all of your relationships will look different. If you can look more like God and reflect his character, your family and your relationships will be better for it. And then these dads, they stand there and they look at the little human being standing next to them and they say, I want to do this for them. I believe it is literally the most potent and tangible expression of what it means to live our faith out. To say, my faith affects the people around me. My decisions affect the people around me. And then I want to live my life differently because of the way that I view God. And I think it helps dads understand what's at stake. I think sometimes our faith gets a little flat sometimes. It's hard to really understand and find the motivation to make changes in our lives. But when you stand next to somebody that you love more than anybody in the world, and somebody tells you that your health, your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being will affect every aspect of that person's life, that is a powerful motivator for change. And it's different. I think it's different than your neighbor. It's different than your spouse, your siblings, your coworkers. Like, they're adults. They have a responsibility to take care of their own well-being. That's the definition of being adult. Like, you have a responsibility to take care of yourself. It's nobody else's responsibility to take care of you. But a child, whose responsibility is that? That's ours. And the way that we love God changes everything about the trajectory of their life. And you see it over and over again, how much of a powerful motivator this becomes for dads. One of my favorite things about fatherhood that I've kind of moved into over the last few years is that being a father and working towards being a good father is one of the most spiritual things you can do. Everybody wants to know, like, what's God's will for my life? If you're a dad, God's will for your life is to be an amazing father. If you're a spouse, God's will for your life is to be an amazing spouse. If you have a job, part of God's will for your life is to be an amazing employee and coworker. We put ourselves in these different positions in our life, and God's will is very clear for us. And so in fatherhood, God's will for my life, one of the things that I need to be moving towards and constantly thinking about and trying to improve in is being a better dad. It's so spiritual. And helping dads love their families is synonymous with helping dads follow Jesus. Helping dads lay down their will and their desire for the sake of their family, for their kids, is being like Christ. This is transformation. It's saying, I am willing to change. I want to change. Not only because of who God is, but because of who these other people are around me. And that's what Dad Camp does. And that's the message that transcends, right? Is allowing ourselves to be transformed, to be different. Every year, as part of Dad Camp, we do something called a blessing. I've talked about this before. It's this moment that's really intentional between dads and kids. And dads, there's usually like a piece, a relic, a little wooden thing, and they write messages and notes, and they bless their kids, and they give it to them, and they share that with them. And it looks different every year. And this year, it was called the Good Dad Promise. And dads were prompted to write a promise about the type of father that they wanted to be, about a commitment that they're making to their kid. And they all look different, but the one thing they all have in common is they're all commitments to look more like Christ. They're all commitments to do something different, or to keep doing something that already represents God. I think it would be almost impossible to make a good dad promise and not have it represent God and the character of God in some way. And this year was really special to me because my two brother-in-laws were there, and I had two nephews there. And one of them texted me when we got back. And this is what he said: I've struggled with overreacting and yelling/anger with Donovan. That's his son, my nephew. And he shared that in session 2. I knew he would, in quotes, parentheses. And so that's what I'm working on. And part of Dad Camp, we facilitate a conversation with kids and dads, and the dads ask the kids questions. And one of the questions this year that the dads ask the kids is, is there anything that I do or any areas of my life that make it difficult for you to honor me? I mean, that is powerful. I'm going to ask my 6-year-old that in 2 weeks. And then he sent me this picture of his blessing that he gave his son. Donovan, my promise to you is to be a dad you take pride in honoring. Quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1:9. It's literally a promise to look more like Christ. There's story after story about this. Dads allowing God to transform their heart for their children. You know, kids get a taste of this and it becomes the best weekend of their life. I think sometimes for dads, it can kind of feel, oh, wait, there's a picture frame too. And this is powerful. The kids give these to the dads when they do the blessing. You have what it takes. I mean, how beautiful is that? I mean, he's trying to be a better dad, and his son believes in him. I mean, he's your biggest fan is the one cheering for you, and that's the one that your changes affect the most. But I think this weekend can sometimes come across to dads as just a special weekend where you get some quality time. And one of the moms on our staff, it's Carmen, I'll just say it. She asked her daughter, would she rather go to Disneyland or Dad Camp when they got home? She said Dad Camp. She told me that she cried all day on Sunday, and that she was, I hope I don't get in trouble with her for sharing this, but that she was like an emotional teenage girl going through a breakup. And later in the day, somebody would say something about Dad Camp, and she'd well up again and get emotional. And her husband told her, he said, I had no idea that she liked it that much. And let's be clear, she doesn't like Dad Camp. She liked being there with her dad and getting her dad's attention and time and energy and affection. And Dad Camp's only special because of the dads, and all it does is magnify the impact of what a good father is. I want to share a couple other stories with you as I wrap up, all right? This is a text that I received from another dad from our church. Side note, he's a recovering alcoholic. This was my second dad camp, and I can't wait to return next year. Each year, I've learned so much about myself and what it takes to be a great, loving father. The relationship I gained with other dads was great. Hearing stories about the other dads' struggles made me realize I'm not alone. We all have things we can improve on. I know I couldn't be the dad I am or continue to be without the love of Jesus. My relationship with Jesus has grown so much over the last few years. Dad camp helps keep me in line with my faith and how to be a great dad and husband. I want to encourage all dads at the church to attend. Sometimes we get comfortable in life and forget that we need a reminder on what it is to be a good father and follower of Christ. Dad camp keeps me grounded and on the right track. Here's another one. This is our second year attending dad camp. I'm a single father, and I anchor my time with my daughter around dad camp. It is the weekend she looks forward to throughout the year, and once the summer begins, the countdown is on until our special weekend together. This year, during our one-on-one time on Saturday, she took me and she told me, thank you for spending this time with her each summer. What a special moment for a dad to hear those words from your child. Thank you. And one more. A special moment for my daughter and I was when she gave me the picture frame and I turned it over to see what she wrote on the back. It blessed my heart as a stay-at-home dad. I told her this was worth more than $1 million to me. I don't always see the payoff while raising them, and that moment gave me a glimpse into the value I am providing to her as her dad. My hope is she sees our Heavenly Father similarly. It was also really cool to see her win a round of Guerrilla Wars. If you don't know Guerrilla Wars, that's a whole nother situation. 18 years ago, 25 dads and 25 kids went to the first ever dad camp. This year, dad camp had more than 10,000 attendees. 15 different countries, 5 different states. For the first time, a father took his son, and that father went as a child with his father. I just got our data back the other day. We had 6 dads from our church say that they accepted Christ for the first time at dad camp. And 1 kid. Thousands of people have come to Christ through dad camp. They're currently working on a partnership with Compassion International where Compassion International wants them to do dad camp for over 100,000 dads in Kenya. In Kenya alone. What they are doing is amazing. Kids love it and dads need it. Its growth and impact are truly overwhelming. Next week, I will be attending my first ever dad camp with my daughter. I've been looking forward to this for 3 years now. You know, I told myself and I told a lot of people that I was bringing dad camp to our church because you guys all needed it. And the truth is that I brought it to our church because I needed it. And I've learned a ton just through being a part of this. And I finally have a first grader and we're gonna go to our first ever dad camp. And for 2 years, she's been looking forward to it. And I know that this is the first of the next 20 years of my life of taking my children to dad camp every single summer and experiencing some of what I've shared this morning with you guys and helping shape the future and the faith of my family. There was a dad who sent me a photo. Those are all the years that he's been to dad camp. And that's the type of dad I want to be. And I am not perfect. I mean, there's so many times where I feel like a bad dad. And honestly, there's been a lot of times where I felt like my wife could do all the things that I do and maybe do some of it better. But that is not the truth. Dads matter more than we will ever realize. And that's why we do dad camp. So the message of Dad Camp is this: you matter more than you will ever know. And you have what it takes to be the father that God has called you to be to your kids. And to everyone else, you have what it takes too, to be whatever it is that God has called you into in your life. And it's gonna require transformation. God says, come as you are, but do not stay as you are. It costs us. We need to change. We need to understand where we need to change. Sometimes we're just totally oblivious. Ask somebody around you. I guarantee they know. Ask a spouse, ask a child. And then if you do know, can you find the motivation to do it? Because the transformation is what this is about. It's about looking more like Christ and allowing it to affect every relationship we have. Let me pray. God, thank you for being our Father. Thank you for your grace. God, we are not good kids all the time. Very rarely, honestly, if we're really brutally honest with ourselves. And you constantly move towards us. You are constantly loving us and pursuing us and chasing us and being the best father that there is, God. Help us to move towards that grace with open arms and allow you to move in our hearts and our minds and our lives to be the person that you call us to be the dad, the husband, the father, the mother, the neighbor, the sibling, the student. God, help us to move towards you so that we can be what you've called us to be, God. We love you. Amen.